All right, everyone, we're live. Sal's joined through the phone today. He's traveling, so we're having a little issues bringing him on face to face. So we'll just do it like this for now. He might be able to come on face to face here in a little bit, but for now, we'll just do it like we usually do. You guys can ask questions, and we'll
Right.
just go on through it like that. So, today we're going to be talking about, let's see, Sal going to prison and meeting a lot of high-ranking mobsters. He went to Louisburg prison, and he got to meet all kinds of different mobsters from different kind of families, and ultimately they would go on to be in a lot of go on to be in high-ranking mobsters. So, Sal, what was the year that you were in there?
It was the summer of 1974, and I had just got there in July. And by the first few weeks, by August, I was deeply connected to all the mob guys from New York. Plus, there was all kinds of guys there, guys from Philadelphia, guys from Boston. Some of those guys were insignificant in 74, but later on, they became very popular. I'll talk about two guys. One who was Joe Piney, Joe Armone in 74. He was sort of in his late 50s, but by the time Gotti took over, he later became the underboss under Gotti because he had killed people. And there was Arnold Squitieri, who in late life he became a boss of the Gambinos after Gotti. So we have all kinds, young guys, old guys. Jimmy Burke had come in and out of there. Tommy DeSimone had come in and out of there. Frank Lucas came in and out. The Philly guys was Chicken Phil Testa that I played chess with, and Harry the Humphrey Cabine. These guys after 74, in fact, the Philly had one of the bloodiest mob wars anybody could ever remember. So we had all kinds of guys there. Vinny Alloy, Colombo guy, Johnny Dio, Lucchese. We had Joe Piney, that was Gambino, Paulie Vario. I watched Paulie Vario cut the garlic, that scene right out of Goodfellas. So we got a lot of people to talk about. There's no way we get this done in one sitting, but we're open for all kinds of questions. So let it go.
Oh yeah, I mean, and a few other guys too. You had that you didn't mention just now. You were in prison with Larry Zano, or the guy from Boston. He was the Patriarcha. How do you say it, Larry?
Larry Zanino.
Zanino. Okay, yeah, he was with the Patriarcha. John Carniglia, and these were guys that would go on to be big figures in the mafia, go into doing internal wars with each other, with inside their families and stuff. So, I think after we've just covered all of the Mafia Hitman series, we're going to go into doing a video about each one of these guys that Sal was in prison with. So this is just kind of giving the background of who these guys were and how Sal had a connection with all these guys, and what they were like while they were in prison, because this is like something that all these guys being in there at the same time. I mean, that's something, you know what I mean, Sal? Because I mean, you guys had your own area. Did they give you for all the mobsters, or what do you call it, Mafia Row?
Looking back, it's very historical because that's the last time that the Italian New York mob ran the prison. And it was 1974. There was no prison phones. I mean, they paid off the guards. We had a corrupt priest that took money. You had to mail money to a private post office box. And there was all kinds of things going on. I mean, I was a young 29-year-old guy wanting to be in the mob. I mean, I wanted to be a made member in that summer. Of course, by Christmas time, my whole vision of what was happening changed because Tommy DeSimone had murdered my friend Foxy, and by Christmas of 74, everything I had learned about the mob was changing. So that was a pivotal time. I'll talk about that. We got characters that you can read off, and people can ask us all kinds of questions about Paul Vario and Johnny Dio and Joe Armone and Angelo. I mean, Jimmy Burke, Tommy, Richard McCoy, the so-called skyjacker that they thought was D.B. Cooper, and Frank Lucas was in and out of there. And the guys from Philly that I met. I was young. I was 29. These guys were all in their 50s at that time.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll go and read some of our comments that we got. Adam said he was the first one to come on this morning. Thanks for tuning in, Adam. Tommy says good morning. That might be my grandmother. I don't know. Gray says, hey, Mafia bros. Hey, thanks for tuning in, man.
Yeah, they realize I'm traveling across the country. I'm in sunny Ohio right now.
Yeah, so that's why we couldn't get Sal on right now. So we just got him on through the phone. We're just making do with what we got for this day. But let's see. Adam asks, "Hey Sal, did you know Angelo Spey, Sepe, Richard Eden, and Louis Cafferwar? Am I saying that?
Richard Egan and Louis Werner, they were involved in the Lufthansa heist.
Did you know them?
I didn't really. No, I really didn't know them. Tommy was involved in them, but Henry, I didn't know those guys.
He didn't ever tell you about them or nothing?
Nah, again, you got to remember in those days, we really stayed connected to the guys that we were, on the books for. I was on the books with the Columbos, so I reported to Joe Pegleg Brancato. I mean, and I didn't interact with every single guy, under the Paul Vario group with Jimmy Burrick and Tommy. I did not. Oh, what's that? Oh, hey, can you see me now?
No. You might be getting it or what?
You got to do this.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, it looks like it's loading. Okay, I'm going to bring you on, Sal. It's loading, though. Okay. We'll let it load real quick.
Oh, there you are. You got a white shirt on today.
Let me see if I bring you in. Let's see. It's loading, but I don't know if it's... I don't see you on here. Does it show that you're in here?
I see myself on there.
It's loading. Okay, there we go. All right, I'm going to turn this off the phone.
Can I cut the phone?
Yeah. Hey, Sal, how you doing, man? Can you hear me?
Good. Let's see if we can get set up a little bit here.
You want to get out of the sun?
Yeah. They know I'm on the road. Okay. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
There we go. Now we get to see Sal.
Is that better?
Oh, yeah, that's
better?
good. Yeah. Now we
Okay,
can
here we
actually
go.
see him.
Okay.
Perfect, man. All right, we'll keep going with that then. Okay. Well, thanks for asking that question, Adam. My dad says, "Good morning, gentlemen." Morning. Thanks for tuning in.
What's going on?
Let's see. The next one we got is from Stay Hungry. He said, "Hi, were there guys that pretended to be mobsters to impress girls or intimidate guys when they were perhaps not even connected? And if so, what happened to those guys when they were found out?"
Well, they sort of wanted to be around us. I have stories about guys that, wanted to hang out with us. They usually went from one group to another, one part of the city to another, until there was something like they called, run a wire on that guy, which was the history of who the guy was, because, all of the mob families were careful about who they let in. Of course, no one knew back in the 70s that, every other guy was giving information to the FBI. I mean, I just left Cleveland and I found out this guy, Danny Green, who was the subject of
Killing the Irishman.
Movie, to Kill the Irishman. This guy was on both sides. I never heard this. I heard this from people that I talked to in Cleveland. It's amazing how we got away with that stuff. So
yeah, good question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. So, the Mafia wife says, Sal, maybe they meant Sal. Talk about how you would wash your money.
It was so simple back then. First of all, everybody should know in 2001, there was an unusual currency act before 2001. But once 9/11 happened, there was all kinds of restrictions about banking and money and the amount of money. Of course, you could never really take $10,000 out of the country. But back in those days, nothing for me to walk into a bank. And I had half a dozen girls that I knew they were tellers. And I'd bring 10, 20,000 each, to each bank. And by the end of the day, I'd go back and pick up 100,000. And I got paid $1,000 for every time I switched other drug dealers' monies, which was really Cataldo. You with all kinds of stuff. And then, I could give money to my broker on Wall Street, like $50,000. He would deposit it in a bogus account with another name. And I was a gambler, so I could trade puts and calls and stocks. Oh my God, you can get away with anything back then. And in New York, you could have a real estate company without revealing who the principals and officers of the real estate company was. So you could buy property, leave it in somebody's name or a corporate name, and then sell it and never pay a damn dollar tax. You could get away with so much in the 70s, 80s. Now you can't get away with walking across the street. Forget about it. You're dead. That catch you moving $50.
$50. Yeah, no shit. Let's see. Stay Hungry says, I'm guessing it was tempting for you Italian guys to do so. He must have been wanting to be made. You were talking about being made and in prison with all them guys. Yeah. Let's see. We got from Wolverine, maybe. Hey
India. We
Sal.
got
Hey
somebody in
Adrian.
India. Wow.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's far away from where we're at, man. Well, thank
Yeah.
you for tuning in. That's really cool. La Senorita says, hey, thanks for tuning in.
Hey, what's going on? You got a couple of questions for us? You want to know how it worked back in the day? We'll tell you.
Yeah. Let's see. John Wolf said DB Cooper has a large following on Facebook. Someone must have made a page for him.
You know, the truth was when I got there, I saw this guy running around the track inside the prison. I had no idea who he was. That was like July. The following month, this guy drove a garbage truck through the back gates and disappeared, and his name was McCoy. And he went all the way over to North Carolina and robbed a bank, and eventually the FBI killed him. Now, for years and years, that was 74, everybody thought that Richard McCoy was the real D.B. Cooper. So when you get a chance, Google Richard McCoy. He jumped out of an airplane with 500,000. D.B. Cooper jumped out of the airplane with 200,000. So he had a lot of similarities, and forever the FBI didn't know if Richard McCoy was really D.B. Cooper.
Yeah, it could have actually been. They just never were able to make it stick.
Yeah.
Let's see. Parrish, if I'm saying that right. Did Sal know Frenchie McMahon and Joe? What's that? Buddha?
Yeah, that was Joe Buddha. Yeah.
Did you know them?
I really didn't know. I didn't know those guys. They hung out. You know, Henry had a little nightclub called the Sweet, and they all hung out there. So in those days, you know, I would go to Cataldo, half a dozen different bars and nightclubs, say hello, have a drink or two. But we never got into intimate conversations, especially about crime. So I knew about these guys a little bit, probably learned more after the heist. And Jimmy was interesting. Jimmy always kept everybody separated. He didn't mix people, certainly not giving us information on what he was doing. If I was doing a score with Tommy or like that we heisted, then I was inside with Jimmy. But as far as backing away and not doing anything for a little while, I didn't know what Jimmy was doing. I had no idea that Jimmy was into all kinds of crime. I mean, but he was. That's who he was.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Good question, Parrish. Yeah, now that's actually my grandma right there. Good morning. I'm glad you got your comments finally. She finally knows how to do that. Cool. Let's see. Sal, what would you say being in the mob was the worst decision you ever made?
Well, you know, I was awfully young when I got involved with my uncle. I met Michael Franzise's dad in the summer of '65. In those days, they portrayed such a fascinating, you know, glamorous life. Was it a bad decision? Of course it was a bad decision. I could have did a lot of things in my life. I became a trader of metals. I did all kinds of things in my life that were legitimate, but unfortunately I used the illegal money that I made with the mob to do these legitimate things. I don't know. It was probably, I would say, the opposite. The best decision in my life in the summer of '64 was to bail out of that life. I could see all the guys getting killed, you know, the mob losing its power in New York. So there was good decisions, bad decisions, but, you know, I lived through it. So I'm not going to complain. I'm alive at 78. I got a good family, and that's the story. I wouldn't advise anybody get involved in that stuff today. You don't have much of a chance. You're going to get busted.
Yeah, I mean, you changed your life and you got out of that shit. I mean, that's you can't change your past. You know what I mean? Only moving forward. Let's see. Sal, was Tommy DeSimone's first wife called Angelo or Angela? What's the last name on there? Can you read it?
Yeah, I knew Angela. Angela worked in a little bar about 8 blocks from where I lived, and she was a tough chick, and she liked to do drag racing. I raced her once. I had a
Oh,
Corvette, and she had a big Chevy block, and I beat her, and she didn't like that. But she was a character. She was a character, Angela.
Wolverine says, I can't believe how let's see, I kind of turned into a mob historian watching both of you. Mountain of knowledge. I didn't know why you aren't on the top of the channel in the mob genre. Shows people are uninformed from India. What do you think about that one, Sal?
Well, there is good information. Some of the documentaries that I was part of, like Inside the American Mob, like 10 years ago. I did something for BBC 20 years ago. I did a Netflix interview. It's coming out this month, The Making of a Mob Boss. There is information. It's just taken a long time for all that information to surface. And of course, for years, I wasn't interested in talking too much about it. I did one interview with a guy in Kansas City, and then Adrian talked to him, a guy named Gary, nice guy. And then Adrian talked me into sharing some of the stuff. My wife always said, "You're a piece of history. Why don't you talk about it?" So now we're talking about it.
Yeah, exactly. So we're working our way up the chain, right? We're working up, getting our channel up there. It's definitely growing. So thanks for your support. Let's see. Tommy asked, Joe Buddha lived on the Lefters in Liberty, was in blue windbreakers every day, big belly. I was younger, had no clue he was with Jimmy Burke. You know who that is?
Yeah, I know exactly where it is. I lived, my Corvette shop was on Liberty Avenue. Fitz Boulevard was about 118th Street. And there was all kinds of other clubs, restaurants there. There was a famous restaurant just a few blocks from where Jimmy had his bar and the little basement, club that they had down there where they played cards and where Tommy supposedly shot Spider. Yeah, I knew all
Oh,
about that
Robert's
whole
Lounge.
area. Yeah, Robert's Lounge. I knew all about that area, but it wasn't somewhere I'd go every day. We had our own location.
The Sinatra Club.
Right.
Was there other clubs that you went to with the Cataldo then? Like other
Yeah.
Colombo clubs?
Oh, yeah, we went to a lot of different places, but basically, Cataldo was also the same type of guy that was around him away from the rest. He didn't want anybody, especially in our case, Cataldo and I, because I was dealing drugs with Cataldo and Jackie Donnelly. I never once dealt any drugs with anybody else but Cataldo and Donnelly for like 10 years.
Damn. Long
Didn't
time.
need to. Yeah, didn't need to. I had my own connection. They had a good pipeline to get pure heroin, and when we cut it up, we made a lot of money.
We got Joey Bubbles. Good morning, fellas. He says, "Morning, Joey. Thanks for tuning in."
Bubbles. Hey, Bubbles, did you watch that Notre Dame game last night?
Let's see what he says. Probably. Mike says, "Hey guys, thanks for tuning in, Mike." Yeah, but to expand more on your whole encounter, in Louisburg, Sal, I think we should talk a little bit more about that, because these guys that you were in there with, I mean, they were, they would become known later on after you left the life and stuff, and people would write books and make movies like Tommy, Jimmy Burke, and then they wrote the book about, I believe, no, they didn't write one about Paulie, but Angelo Ruggiero was part of some books, and they did documentaries. But there's also some guys that weren't really heard of, like lower, I would say, like the guy from Boston, Larry, that you were talking about. He wasn't as heard of as much, or the Colombo guy, Jerry Langella, as well.
I hear you breaking up a little bit.
Oh, is it cutting out?
I can hear you though. Yeah.
What about let's talk about Alley Boy Persico. So you were in prison with him, and then later he would find you, or you would run across him while you were in the protection program. But what was he like when you were in prison with him?
I was in prison with him in '74. He was in and out, and by the time I went into the program in 1985, he was running around on the lam. I ran into him in a bar called Bennigan's in San Antonio. And, I slowly backed away out of that place, reported to the FBI. And it was a long time before they got him, put him back in jail. But I understand, that his connection with his brother was very instrumental in the family. The Colombos had so many gang wars, inner mob skirmishes that it was complicated to keep up with them. And I think Cataldo was deeply involved with Persico, Ali Boy, Jerry Langella. I just started to get away from those guys, in the early '80s.
Well, I mean, with Ali Boy, Persico, and Cataldo, what did you tell Cataldo that you're in prison with him at any point? Because I mean, he was aligned with him and that that faction of guys. What was his thoughts on that? Did he ask you about Ali Boy ever in prison, or did anything like that?
I didn't. You were breaking up. I didn't hear the whole question.
What was Cataldo? Did Cataldo ever ask you about you being in prison with Ali Boy?
No, they knew. They checked on you. All the mob made guys who check on guys who went to prison to make sure they stood up. They weren't giving the authorities information. And when I got out, I still had to be quiet because I went right back to drug dealing in a different way. I was dealing more heroin than ever. Not only did I have Cataldo, but I had a couple other guys I met that were from Harlem that were giving me good product. So I didn't share that with Cataldo. I couldn't share that with Cataldo. He would have been jealous that I was getting good product from someone else for less money. So it was very competitive in those days. And, I increased my business, made a lot of money, invested money in real estate, had a jewelry store, I had commercial buildings I bought. So I did okay in that business. Then in '82, I bailed out. I took about $1 million, went upstate New York and built that racetrack. I didn't realize I was never going to have enough money. You start to build a racetrack, it got real interesting, and I ran out of money. That's when I returned for a short time with some more drugs.
They got real interesting and real expensive. Yeah. So another one we can talk about as well is Vinny Aloy. When you were in there with him, did you talk to him much?
No, I didn't talk to Vinny Aloy or Benny Aloy, Buster. I didn't talk to those guys. I mean, just hello and goodbye. You weren't about to stand up and say, "Oh, I'm with Dominic Cataldo, who's close to Carmine Persico." You didn't do that stuff. You didn't do that. I mean, they checked on you. They knew who you were, but you didn't have that deep conversation.
Okay. What about Jerry Langella? I mean, he was Colombo as well.
Jerry
Did you get to talk to him?
Langella, I played pinochle in prison, and occasionally he would play pinochle. He was good friends with Angelo Ruggiero, though. Jerry Lang.
Oh, was he? They had a pretty close relationship.
They were a little older than me.
Yeah. So did he know who you were with?
Yeah, they knew I was, with the Colombo group. They knew I was around Cataldo. They just left me alone. That was a good position to be with the whole Gotti crew. They knew I was with the Colombos, and they just left me alone. That was it.
Yeah. What about Johnny Dio? When you were in there with him, what was he like? Did you get to talk to him one-on-one?
Wow, he was a real old-time gangster. If anyone would Google the movie On the Waterfront, they patterned Jay Cobb's character, which was Johnny. They patterned Dio. He was a vicious old-time gangster. So that's deeply entrenched in all the unions.
Yeah, I mean, he was one of the. I just watched that movie that you had told me about. That one was from the 1950s in black and white. That was an old one, but it was good. I liked it.
Yeah, Let's see. It was a popular movie. Won a whole bunch of Academy Awards.
Did you watch it when you were younger then, out on the street then when that came out?
Well, I watched at the Hollywood in '87, '88. I watched movies that were critically acclaimed. They were popular, cutting edge movies. I mean, they won eight Academy Awards. So I did watch the movies that, were so well received and popular and written by, legendary writers. And they had Brando in there, and they had the woman that was in there, Eva Saint Marie. Eva Marie Saint, she's alive today at 99.
Really? 99,
Yeah.
damn, man.
So 99 right now. So she lived all these years after she did that movie, and she won an Academy Award. So it was a great movie.
Yeah, so that's when you were kind of figuring out what you wanted to do with after the mob, see what you can make a movie or do something like that. So you started doing all the homework and studying all the other movies.
Yeah, I got there in 87, 88, and I used two different names to be involved with the film business. I started writing scripts. I met a few popular, legendary writers and producers and all. And eventually, I wrote the Sinatra Club movie. Didn't have a lot of money to make it a big, successful, big budget movie. I got them done, and that's half the battle if you get there to Hollywood to get something completed. So it was fun to do that.
Let's see. John had a question. He said, "What are your thoughts and predictions regarding the Mexico cartels and the kingpins?"
Wow, I marvel about how much violence is down there, and how corrupt, law enforcement and politics is. So, gosh, I don't know how they're going to clean that up down there. That's a real mess. If you get involved with those guys, you're putting your life on the line. So I would caution anybody who wants to get involved in drugs going down to Mexico. Pretty dangerous.
Yeah, that's true because I mean they don't. They're different, man. They do not play around. They go after all kinds of different people that regular criminals wouldn't go after, man. It's a lot more corruption over there. Let's see. If anyone has any questions, feel free to comment below and see if you want to hear about any of these guys that Sal was in prison with back then in the 1970s. But I think this is a good way to go into that, what we're going to be doing about the whole new series that we're going to start and hopefully making it into a project is what it sounds like is what you want to do with it, like a play, right? You want to explain?
It was an interesting time. I mean, with a lot in the 70s, really. And I'd like to give the listeners, the public, real view of how organized crime infiltrated, the prison system and how they manipulated the guards and the people who ran the prison system. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a history, and I don't know exactly what happens in prison today. It's been 37 years since I went inside the prison, so I wouldn't know.
Don't want to know either,
No.
You did your time, man. Yeah, we'll just see if any more questions come in. But like you said, you're on the road and stuff today, so we don't have to do a long live. You know what I mean? And I mean, it's the connection and stuff isn't the best. So if anyone has any more questions or anything, I mean, Sal, you want to wrap up early then? If we get a few more questions.
Yeah, I'd like to do a profile on some of these guys to let the public know who they were and how they interacted. Because in the prison, you had guys involved with 5 different families, but they all worked together there to get things done. The main thing to understand is that if you had money, you could get money, through the priest. You can get it to the priest, and he would pay the guards, and we could get anything we wanted to get done back then.
Yeah, no, that's what's different, man. You don't really think about that, but I mean, we see the movies and the shows and stuff of guys paying off guards and stuff, but I don't know. I guess you guys really were doing that back then. Let's see. Samuel said, "Rock on." Yeah, see, there's the connection.
Oh.
Samuel said, "Rock on, boys. Watching from Finland, Europe. Interesting. Keep up the good work." Thank you.
Well, that's good, Samuel. Thanks for listening. Tell your friends.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, I mean, if you want to just, we can wrap up now, and then
Okay.
since that connection's kind of bad and stuff, but you know, we'll
Yeah, we got a tough connection.
yeah, that's all right
But
though.
we got a whole list of guys. Yeah, a whole list of guys who became famous, and how many movies were done about these guys that I was imprisoned with in Lewisburg in 1974. It's pretty amazing how the film business and how the mob became publicly popular. We'll talk about that soon.
Yeah, well, thank you everyone for tuning in and bearing with us through the live. I know it wasn't the
Yeah.
best connection, but you know, it is what it is. We made best of what we had, so we'll see everyone next Sunday and next Saturday. You'll find our video about Andrew Curro, and then here in a couple hours, I'll be posting an interview with hell, I don't even know. I can't even recall, but I'll be posting an interview here in a few hours. But thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll end it there.